Welcome to the unknown, a place where ghosts, cryptids, and extraterrestrials are sought. This is where you'll find answers to questions about what lurks in the dark. This is Periscope Uncensored.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Clarissa Vazquez. And riding shotgun this evening is my hostess cupcake, Mr. Joe White.
Hi, everybody.
And Joe, we had kind of an exciting weekend and followed it up with kind of a fun day today, didn't we?
Yes, we have.
And to fill our listeners in, for those that don't know, I'm the founder of one of the longest running paranormal investigation organizations in the state of Colorado. And Joe is my operations training specialist for that team. And over the weekend, we interviewed a young man who had applied for a position within the team to be an investigator. And, we asked him, how'd you hear about us? And he said, well, I did an internet search, and then I went and listened to every single archive you have of Periscope Uncensored. And Joe and I both kind of went, wow. And then I told him flattery will get you everywhere. He even referred to Joe as Mr. Menage a Spook.
That's funny.
It was great. It was great. We loved it. And so, although I was told that the sprinkles on my donut is not as funny as Menage a Spook, or when we called QVid Obi-Wan Kenobi's illegitimate twin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know that there's at least one person out there that listens to us, and his name is Dakota, and we're really happy for that. We have a fan. How do you feel about that, Joe?
It's having at least one fan. Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Well, we know we have at least one listener. We've got one.
Yeah. He's probably listening right now. Hey, Dakota.
Yeah, he probably is listening right now. What's up, D? So, yeah, that was kind of cool. I was kind of taken aback, and it takes a lot to shock me and everything. But here this guy says, I listened to all of the Periscope archives on Spotify. Or no, not Spotify, on Spreaker.
On Spreaker.
He says, I listened to all the archives on Spreaker. And went, wow.
I know, my mouth hit the floor when I heard that.
Yeah. And then, so we spent today getting him started in the training process. We went through 12 PowerPoint presentations and had some really good conversation, had a couple of laughs. The cat decided to make an idiot out of himself by demanding everybody's attention.
Yeah, but that's what they do, though, isn't it?
Well, that's what this cat does. He's an attention junkie. He demands attention. But, so what else is going on in the paranormal world, Joe? Anything that you're aware of?
No, I can't say that. Didn't see anything relevant.
Okay. Nothing in the UFO field, no new sightings, no Sasquatch encounters?
Well, there's all kinds of course, there's all kinds of sightings, supposedly, but you look at it and it's nothing concrete. It's all like an advertisement balloon or a regular balloon, or, the archways made out of balloons.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Just once, I want to go out there with those Asian New Year's balloons. You know what I'm talking about? The lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
And, get about a half a mile away from a bunch of stargazers and just turn those balloons loose and see what happens. See if they start squealing or if they work to debunk it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think that would be a hoot. But
I know that there's still a bunch of more articles that have come out from what we spoke of last week during the first segment about the
Pentagon?
Pentagon continuing to investigate UFOs.
And what are the articles saying? Just more of the same?
Yeah.
Okay. And nothing big in the crypto field? I know there was a close encounter with a bear in Narragansett, Rhode Island. That actually made national news because we heard about it here in Colorado.
Well, the thing about that is like even like a few years ago in Massachusetts, there was a bear that made up its way. I want to say made down its way as far as Wareham. Because it's that area where I came from in Middleborough, they don't really commonly have bears unless they wander in.
Well, Narragansett in Rhode Island is on the beach.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there were pictures to prove it. This woman took photos from inside her car of the bear kissing her window. It was quite impressive, actually. It was a good-sized bear. Looked like a black bear. So, but that's not really cryptid, is it?
No.
It's creepy if it's happening to you,
Yeah.
but not cryptozoological in the slightest. Just plain old zoological.
Yeah. Actually, kind of excited about getting the crypto division up and running.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
I mean, speaking of cryptozoology.
Do you have locations planned out that you're wanting to go to yet?
No, I'm so lost still here. You know, it's like I'm slowly just starting to figure out after 4 weeks of being here how to get to downtown.
Maybe we ought to wait a little while before I turn you loose in the forest.
Well, it's not going to be me alone, right?
Well, that's true.
So
There will be others with you. Maybe I should get you a GPS locator so that if you don't come home on time, I can just ping your beacon and know where to send search and rescue.
yeah, that'll be cool.
Have our friend Claire from the Forest Service go get you.
Yeah. I don't think that I'll be that lost.
I hope not.
No, just keep going.
If you get lost, who's going to eat that refrigerator full of food?
It'll be there when I come back.
Yeah. Depending on how long you're gone, yeah. It'll still be here. It may have mold on it.
Oh, I'll only be gone a couple days.
Ah, okay. And you're excited to go and do that and start, how do they call it? Squatching?
Yes, squatching.
That sounds very much like my new favorite word. And I got to tell our listeners about my new favorite word because we were going through the training PowerPoints today for CCPI, and we got to the photography PowerPoint, and I did not write it. A former team member did when he was still part of the team. He wrote it, and throughout the whole presentation, he used the word glitchy. And I'm like, you know what? I like that word. That is a neat word. You don't hear that very often. Glitchy.
Yeah, I've heard it, a few times, but not as many times as it was in that
Right?
PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, and so, and I've always been a fan of the word squatch anyway. I think it sounds dirty without being dirty. Squatch. I like that word. And so to go squatching, it sounds like you're going to go do something unethical.
I don't know how you get that from out of Squatch, but okay.
Well, I guess it's all in the tone and inflection, that you use when you say the word squatch.
I don't know. Most people don't walk around going Squatch.
Is that just a Clarissa-ism?
It may be. Yeah, but I'm excited to get the ball rolling. It's supposed to launch this summer, so.
And summer is coming up quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got a paranormal field trip coming up next Friday. We're going to a famous haunted cemetery to practice and hone skills and work on team building. So that'll be exciting.
Which some team members need.
Yeah.
Say like moi.
Yeah. Well, it'll be your first actual casework with the team. You've participated in meetings and training and stuff like that, but you haven't actually investigated with the team since August, and that was only with 3 of us.
Right. So this should be the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's time to get the ball rolling. I'm having investigation withdrawals over here.
Yeah, you haven't worked a case since
November,
yeah. Well, you'll find that out here it can be nonstop. So that's what happens when you've got a really good organization and you've got really good people in that organization. And, we get a little popular from time to time, but Friday's event is just a field trip. It's just a team building exercise. And we've got our tech manager, Eric, to thank for that. It was his idea to, do some team building. And we all recognize that cemeteries, while they're creepy and they add to the, the spook factor and everything, they're not necessarily the best place to gather credible data. But it's, good for practice and good for team building and stuff like that.
No, cemetery. No, how far away is the road from the cemetery?
Oh, well, to get to the cemetery itself, you have to hike a half a mile almost straight up. So.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about noise contamination from cars driving by.
Not a lot, no.
Cool.
And we're very fortunate that there's no curfew at this cemetery. So we don't have to have permission to be there. So it's advantageous for us to go and practice there. But we've got a great show lined up for you tonight, folks. Here in about 4 minutes, we're going to have Lorilei Potvin on the show with us. She's going to be talking about her abilities and maybe even give us a reading and talk about her experience on the TV show Paranormal Survivor. So we're really looking forward to having Lorilei on the show. She's a good friend of ours. We go back to the days on another network. I've been a guest on her show, and she and I have done a couple of live broadcasts together. She and Seraphine Hurley, who has Tripping the Void on Friday nights here on WBHM Digital, we used to do a show periodically called Four Drunk Broads. And it was the 3 of us plus our good friend Katie. And we would get on and have a couple of cocktails and just talk about anything and everything. And oh my gosh, did some of those shows get wild.
Yeah, including yours truly turning 100 Shades of Red.
Yeah, Joe joined us for two of the shows, the Thanksgiving show and the New Year's show. And it was a lot of fun. And it did become a game. It's like, how red can we make Joe turn?
Yeah.
And I think his opinion of me changed drastically after the first one.
I know. The image of you I had in my head just like shattered.
What was your image of me before Four Drunk Broads?
Nothing like I found out.
You discovered that I'm human, right?
Yes.
Right. But yeah, Lorilei and Seraphine and we used to have a great time doing that. And I don't know, maybe we can persuade the current network to let us do a show like that at some point. Maybe we can do a 4th of July show or something. Maybe if there isn't another show on, maybe we can do that at some point. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But, if we say pretty please and ask nicely, maybe we'll get the green light to do something like that in the future. And if we do, we'll be sure to announce it so that everybody can listen to the silliness.
Yeah, that's pretty much what me and some of the guys do over in Hangouts. Just hang out, talk about anything and everything.
Yeah, but you don't broadcast it on the air.
No, we don't.
See, and that's the fun part about what we were doing is, we were broadcasting it on the air and still trying to remain FCC compliant. And you have no idea how difficult that is after you've had a couple of cocktails in you.
Right.
But it is time for our first break of the evening. But when we come back, we're going to have Miss Lorilei Potvin on the show. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son, what are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening is Mr. Menage Spook himself, Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
What, no radio voice?
Hello, everybody.
And the girls go wild. Ah! Hey, we have got a great guest on the line tonight. She is a very gifted medium. She is one of the people that you may have seen on season 4, episode 9 of Paranormal Survivor. And she is a great friend of ours. Please join us in welcoming Miss Lorilei Potvin to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. You know how much I love you guys. I love Kat. I love you all. So thank you for having me.
Well, and Lorilei, like we were talking during the break, we got the green light to do a Four Drunk Broads show.
Oh, they're in for a treat. Let me tell you, we've had some high numbers with those shows and we've done them before.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And don't know when exactly it's going to be. Maybe we'll take one of the open Periscope slots and do that.
Ooh, I love it.
We can call it Four Drunk Broads and Joe.
Yes, yes. I didn't ask Joe what if he was going with Joe or what he was. So I went with your nickname, Joe, when I was reminding people to tune in because you guys have got a great show. I heard you talking about squatching.
Yes.
Is it just me, or is that an awesome word?
It is. It is. And well, I'm up in Canada, but we call Bigfoot Sasquatch up here as well. So I like the word squatching.
Right?
Isn't it Bobo off of the Sasquatch TV show? He's got the best hats. I think one of them it says going squatching or something.
What is that? Finding Bigfoot?
Yes.
Is that the show that Bobo's on? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys got to come up here. Where apparently we've got all kinds up here.
I'm just waiting for somebody to get his passport before we do some international travel. I've got mine. I'm ready to go.
Mr. Radio Voice himself hasn't got his passport yet.
I'm working on it.
You're working on it? Okay. All right. And then you guys, well, no, but I told you I went to Colorado for the first time this past around Labor Day. And I was actually really surprised because your landscape in that area is very similar to where I live. I'm about 40 minutes away from the Minnesota border. So we've got lots of nature and trees and things like that. So,
Oh, I would love to get up there into Canada and see some of that, see some of the flora and fauna up there, and see if it's if it really is comparable to Colorado, or if it's different, or just different enough, or if it's like being at home. And if it's like being at home, I might move.
Well, actually, if you guys came, we'd have to go out to the cottage because the Dell has a family cottage right on the most beautiful lake, and it's in a bit of a basin, so it could be raining all around the city, but right in that area, it could be just beautiful sun. It's so peaceful. He's even had a crazy encounter in the cottage one night when he was alone and doesn't know what hit it, if it was a Sasquatch or what it was, but something hit the cottage, and it's like a 2-story house, and shook it to its core, right down to the foundation. He never found out what it was. There wasn't a rock.
Wow.
There wasn't anything. Yep.
Sure it wasn't like a little earth tremor or something?
Nope. He said it sounded like a rock had hit, like a boulder had hit the house. And like I said, it's literally like a 2-story house. Plus it's got wraparound decks and the whole bit. But he built the foundation. So there's area beneath underneath the cottage in case of water runoff or whatever, because there's a bit of a hill on the backside. So he knows, like he said, he was afraid it was going to knock off of the platforms, the cement platforms. That's how badly it got hit. Like it wasn't shaking like an earthquake. It was like something hit the cabin or the cottage.
Wow. That's crazy.
My question was, I said to him, why did you go outside? Well, you're 35 minutes away from the city, and he was all alone at the cottage, and the side that we're on is quite secluded. There's only about 4 to 6 cottages all along there, and not everybody's out there, so he was pretty well on his own.
Oh, wow.
Obviously he lived to tell the day or tell the story.
Well, yeah. And he's very lucky that nothing catastrophic happened.
No, because we have lots of wildlife out there. So, but he never said he thought it was a Sasquatch. He didn't know what it was, but it had to be something pretty big to do this. And I could see if we had an earth tremor or something, but we don't even get tremors here. It's weird.
You say that now.
Well, it's what we're built on. Like we've got a lot of higher elevation than in Colorado, but we're built on the Canadian Shield. So, well, you never know. Now that I said it, yeah, watch it cause a tremor. It is just rock.
Yeah. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with you, I know you've been on Seraphine's show. For our listeners that are not familiar with you, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure, I would love to. My name is Lorilei Potvin. I live in Thunder Bay, northwestern Ontario, Canada. Like I mentioned, about 40 minutes away from the Minnesota border. I am a psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki master, energy healer, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I'm also a medical intuitive, a YouTuber, and a registered nurse and a mom, and very well versed in the paranormal. I always say I never went looking for the paranormal, it found me. My only thing I can surmise, we've gone through extreme paranormal activity in our home for almost 10 plus years. My husband's been thrown 15 feet. We've been burnt, we've been bit, we've been scratched, all kinds of crazy things. But there's other people besides our family that have experienced activity as well. So the only thing I can surmise that I think maybe why this happened, I did work in a very low income part of our city. I was a community visiting nurse, and there was a lot of murder there, suicide, a lot of violence, all kinds of things that I would classify sort of as lower vibrational energy. And I had wonderful patients, but I did a lot of palliative care. Now, I don't know if maybe somebody had an attachment that they weren't aware of, that when they passed from this realm over into back home, heaven, whatever people believed it to be when we pass away, if it followed me home or what happened, but this is quite a story.
Wow. Now, you've been having experiences for most of your life, though, not just as an adult.
Yes, I have actually. I'm going to be 54 in August. And I remember back when I was about 4 years old, we had moved into a very old house. It's still actually standing, but this was back in, I think it must have been 1969, 1970. And I remember my mom steaming the wallpaper off to get to the plaster walls, and she steamed off 39 layers of wallpaper. That's how old this house was.
Wow.
And I remember that was one of my earliest paranormal encounters. Something grabbed me during a thunderstorm in my bedroom. And yeah, we've had strange things throughout my whole life, off and on. I was about 8 years old one summer. I'd wake up every night, 3 o'clock in the morning, completely blue, unable to breathe. There was no 911. I wasn't choking on anything. And my dad would scoop me up, bring me to the emergency. And by the time I got away from the house, I'd be able to breathe. And they could not find out why. They ended up classifying it just as asthma. But the really odd thing is my oldest son has actually mirrored a lot of the same things that have happened to me as a child at the same age. So it's kind of strange.
And then you had an incident as a young adult involving a car, right?
Oh, you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, I do.
Well, that's okay. Well, that's not really paranormal. If you really see, I even talking to my roommate, that's been my best friend since I was 16, she had said, Laura, you always knew things, and I never knew why you knew them. But going back to the story, like I mentioned, I was a community visiting nurse, and I had one of the country roads that I had to be driving to. I only went into my office once a week. So we were given, say sometimes 13 patients in a day, and you had to drive, and you just sort of called in your order, but nobody knew where I was. I didn't have cell phones back then. So I was driving up this country road. It was really sunny, and I was about 4 months pregnant with my first son. And I was driving a little red Pontiac, I forget what it was, not a sports car, but only a 4-cylinder car. And I was in a hurry. I think I had to do an intravenous medication, and I was running late. So when I was going down this road, there was no signs, there was nothing. And as I'm driving, all of a sudden my car goes down a 45-degree embankment. And it's wintertime. The snow is deep. I open the car door, and the snow is up to my hip. There's no phones. There's nothing around me anywhere. I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get this car out of here? I can't even call a tow truck. Plus, I'm thinking, my first baby, I'm pregnant. What do I do? I literally heard, which I now know had to have been my guides, say to me, Lorilei, get back in the car, put it in reverse, and drive. And I'm arguing with myself in my head saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get more stuck. There's no way. Trust me, just try it. And Clarissa does know this story because I've told her it. All of a sudden, I put it in reverse. And remember, 4-cylinder car, very light. And the snow had to be 3.5 feet deep. My car was like something had pushed it from the front end all the way back up the hill. I don't know how I did it, how it got there. It was literally like something was pushing it up the hill back onto the road. I didn't have a scratch on the car. The car was fine. And that was one of my first incidences where I really started to see that there's something else out there, not always negative, but positive too, that's on our sides as well.
Didn't your dad have a slight premonition about that?
No, not my dad, but I think what I've told you, I've told you so many stories. Clarissa and I
Right.
are really, really good friends too, so we talk a lot. What I had said was my dad, on his side, his mother actually had these abilities. She was able, that might be the story you were thinking I might have told you as well, Clarissa, when I never met him. My dad's one of 17 children, and he's sort of towards the middle, younger end. And what had happened was his third older brother was late for supper. And they were all sitting at the table. And as I remember my dad telling me this story, my grandmother stood up screaming and crying, which was so out of character, saying his name, that he was dead. And as my dad told me the story as a young child, that my grandfather said, sit down, you're scaring the children. He's just late, he'll be home. And I guess what had happened was my uncle was driving at that time, they made their own hot rods and whatever, there was no seat belts. He was driving ahead of his best friend, and they were going quite speed. And what had happened was, I guess his car door opened and he fell out, and his friend accidentally ran over him. But when my grandmother stood up, if I remember the story correctly, it was like 6:11 p.m. when my grandmother stood up saying this. And the police showed up actually about an hour and a half later. And when this actually happened was at 6:11 p.m. when he had lost his life. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that might be the one that you were thinking about with my dad.
That was the one I was thinking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but you know what, as a spiritual teacher, one thing I do believe, we all have a sixth sense. And the way I explain it to people is, whether you want to call it being psychic or a medium or whatever it is, children and babies are all able to see spirit. We see it all the time with imaginary friends, or even babies sitting there looking like they're looking at something, talking, might be laughing, giggling. But also, people say it even nowadays, I'm going to trust my gut. I'm gonna go with my gut on this one. I just know it. I don't know why I know it, but I know it, which to me is something we call clairsentience. And so we all have that sense. But I really believe that for the majority of us, when we get into quote unquote adulting, and all the all the things that we have to get told it's time to grow up, leave childhood fantasy behind, whether it's imagination, imaginary friends, pretend play. And we tend to, I like to liken it to spiritual amnesia, if you will. And so I find the people that usually I end up working with, they start feeling this call. Whatever it may be, there may be an impetus in life. For myself, it was the paranormal activity. Whatever it is. And that's kind of how, once they sort of feel that call and they get some curiosity and start, asking questions and doing some reading and whatever it may be, they usually find somebody that, resonates with them. The energy works. They just really like the personality, and start to learn about these gifts and how to reignite their gifts, if you will.
Now, how would someone go about reigniting their gifts?
Well, the first thing I find is sometimes you have strange things happen, like what happened to me when I was driving as a community visiting nurse, thinking there's no way that should have happened. Sometimes people have a dream. Sometimes it's when somebody passes away, a loved one, whatever it may be. For whatever reason, either people start getting questions about, is there something more beyond when we leave this life? Why am I here? Do I have a purpose? I meet so many people at a crossroads in their life. They're looking for answers. Or, it could even be something as simple as, every time I go out, I'm always the person that 10 people will come up to and start telling me their life story. And then they'll say, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I just met you. That's part of being an empath, if you will. Or, there's a lot of people where I find too that have things like social anxiety or panic attacks in crowds. And as they start to, maybe find medication isn't working so well, or whatever it may be, there's so many different impetuses why somebody may be looking to go down that path. But what it is, especially if you're an empath, which basically means that you're wide open to everybody else's energy. Sometimes it's hard to tell where your feelings end and somebody else's begin. So there's lots of different reasons why somebody may, sort of go down this journey, if you will.
Interesting. And so, what then would somebody who is just starting out, wanting to reawaken their skills, what are some of the steps that they would take toward doing that?
Okay, well, some of the things I suggest to people: read, do some research. And as our good friend Seraphine always likes to say, even look at a book, because books actually have a lot of value. They've been printed by somebody a lot more before the internet. As we know, we have to be a little bit skeptical with everything we read on the internet, but it's a good place to start. I like to tell people to find people on social media. Start looking. There's lots of great groups out there. You may find somebody is covering some of the topics. A lot of people have heard of things like the third eye. That's the biggest question I get. How do I open my third eye? But anyways, getting back to your question, some of the things that can really, really help, the number one thing, meditation daily. And the reason why is it's not just to open your spiritual gifts. We're finding that people that, are CEOs, are athletes, musicians, anybody that is a little bit creative or maybe needs to really, I actually do have to say that, really access that creative process. Our mind, the one that we think with all day long, or our brain, is the one that talks. So when we meditate, we get to quiet that part of the brain. And that's when we have that silence, that we're able to start connecting with guides or even hearing our subconscious. So I think that's the number one thing. Number two would be raising your vibration. So even maybe making a practice of mindfulness for even a couple weeks or a month, because it's amazing the thoughts that go through our minds. Like when we're at work, we don't catch them. So the practice of mindfulness is, if you're able to, set your alarm couple times a day while you're at work. When it goes off, stop and think what that last thought was that was going through your mind. A lot of times we're absolutely surprised, a lot of negativity that we think, whether it can be towards other people, but I find even more so towards ourselves. So it's really important to start learning how to love ourselves, forgive ourselves for whatever we may think. I always say, especially even as a joke, as a mom, we don't just give birth to a baby, we give birth to guilt. Or a lot of people, are so hard on themselves. You say things, not you, I mean like the global you, will say things inside our heads to ourselves that we wouldn't dream of saying to another individual. So it's things like that, spending time with the practice of gratefulness or gratitude. A lot of people say, I have nothing to be grateful for. Did you wake up this morning? Yes. Were you able to get that cup of coffee this morning? Yes. Or have some breakfast, or whatever it may be. And the more we start to really celebrate the things that we have in our life and are grateful for, the more that life seems to bring us in the way of what brings us happiness and joy. Spending time with friends that make you laugh and make you feel good, uplift you, listen to uplifting music, getting back to the things you really love and enjoy, making time for yourself, especially if you're super busy, even if that's maybe only a couple minutes, a couple times a day, but doing something that you really love that brings you a lot of happiness. So that's just a little bit of icing off the cake. There's quite a few other things you can do, but that sort of really will start initiating the process.
Very cool. And on that note, it's time for our next break of the evening. But when we come back, more with Lorilei Potvin. So stay tuned. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening is Mr. Radio Voice himself, Joe White.
Hello, everybody.
And the girls go wild. Ah! We're going to have girls standing outside the front door throwing their underwear at you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, on that note, I want to say hello to one of my good friends, Mike Johnson. He's in the chat. Hey, Mike.
Well, hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
So, Lorilei, before the break, we were talking about what people can do to increase their vibration or to open their third eye. What would you say is the most popular or most common form of extrasensory ability? Is it clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience? What would you say is the most common or popular form?
You know what? That's a difficult one to answer. And the reason why, because there's many of what we call the clairs. So basically, claircognizance, knowing, clairsentience. Sorry, claircognizance is knowing, clairsentience. Say you pick up some beads and you know who wore them, you could feel the feelings behind it. Clairgustinance, some people taste stuff that's not there. Clairaudience is hearing, clairvoyance is seeing. And there's a couple other ones that are a little less common. So that is another. I'm glad that you asked me that, though, Clarissa, because I think it's really important for people to look at how they learn best. And the reason why I say that, because I find for a lot of people when we're learning this, that if you're more visual or able to visualize, sometimes it's a little easier to make that connection with spirit. But if you're not visual, it's not the end of the world. I mean, that's a skill that you can work on. But usually what I would say, you hear people that gives you the big bang, I think, is the clairvoyance. When people can see. But believe it or not, I think a lot more people are more clairaudient than what they realize. Because I meet so many people expecting, say, they're going to hear from spirit or their guides, thinking they're going to hear this big, deep radio voice like our Joe or something, when a lot of times it's actually your own voice. But being able to discern what's really your voice and what's coming from spirit. And the beautiful thing about knowing if you connect with your guides or with spirit is the fact that they will never scare you. They're not going to say something negative or detrimental or horrible or tell you have to or you need to, because they respect that we have the gift of free will. Plus, for example, and I try and explain this to people, I'm not hearing voices. But for example, when I told the story earlier about me getting in the car when it went down the embankment and having an argument with myself, I now know I was kind of having an argument with my guide, saying, well, how am I going to do this? And then hearing the answer. And if you think about it, when say you're laying in bed at night and you've got an issue or a problem and you're trying to figure out the answers, we all do this. We all do that problem solving in our head. We have that conversation. And then I know most of us have had this happen when all of a sudden there's this clear stroke of genius, or we hear the answer. A lot of times that's from our guides. So the way I've been able to discern the difference, they speak a little differently than I do. It's always meant love. It's always meant for my highest good. And again, never derogatory, never negative. And that's usually the best way to start telling. And like I say, sometimes it takes a little bit of practice to discern. But so a lot of people, I really truly believe, are more clairaudient than what they realize they are.
Mm-hmm. And what about those? What about those negative voices? The ones that plant those not so nice seeds in your head. Where do those come from?
Ego. And you'll hear, depending on the spiritual teacher that you work with, that the ego is a bad thing, that we need to tame our egos. And when people think ego, they think about the bragging, the braggart, whatever. No, we all have an ego. Could get really in depth, I won't. But I'm talking about going back to Freud and Jung and all of their, their concepts about modern day psychology, which we've built off of. But I truly believe that we have our brain, or thinking brain, if you will, all day long. We have the subconscious, which I believe is a true master. That's what we usually access when we're asleep and we're in dreaming phase and we have our dreams. But we also have the ego. And the ego is the part that may come in, sort of give you a bit of skepticism, may bring in a lot of fear, the what ifs, that negative voice. So I always like to help people make friends with their ego, because it's still a part of us. We can't ever take that away. It is what it is. And I think it's a lot easier to make friends with it, be able to include it in part of the process, because it's also meant there really in a way with bringing in the fear aspect, part of the survival mechanism as well. So, but that's usually where it comes from, is our ego.
And you do readings, you do card readings and angel readings and stuff like that. Where does that ability come from?
Where does it come from? Well, everybody does everything differently. Yeah. With mediumship, that was something, one of my newer gifts. Like, I do believe that we are capable. I truly, truly believe that what we believe is what we perceive. And with the power of the mind and believing in ourselves and believing that we can do it, quieting that voice that says, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't, you failed at it, you're never going to succeed. We've all heard that voice. But really starting to believe in ourselves. Sometimes you have to use things like affirmations, whatever that may be, that'll help you convince those frontal lobes to start believing it. But where it comes from is the sixth sense, like what I talked about, that we all have. And people get information from spirit, again, in different ways. Everybody is unique. Everybody accesses it in completely different ways. Like I said, for example, Claire Sentience, when I discovered this, I make jewelry. And somebody had donated some beads to me that had come from a garage sale or something. And the first time I picked up the beads, I dropped them. I was so shocked. And this is before I understood about my gifts, because I could literally see the person that was wearing them. I could see the person that had given them this necklace, and the love that you could feel that within the beads. So, like I said, there's a lot of different aspects. I think it's really important, again, to understand, are you a visual learner? Do you need something written down? I think what it basically takes is a little bit of practice, deciding what one of your stronger skills is. And usually if you're working with a spiritual teacher or mentor, I also suggest it's a good idea to work with a bunch of different teachers and mentors, because everybody has a different way that they work. And you may be able to pick up a little piece from here, a little piece from there, that really kind of brings it all together for the person. So with a little bit of practice, again, like I said, a lot of people are a lot more clairaudient than what they realize. So helping people to learn what to tune into, what to focus on. Like I said, I believe all of us have this. And I'm going to say this on here, Clarissa. I've told you before, I think you're extremely intuitive. And like I said, it's all a matter of whether, are you ready to hear that? Are you ready to accept that? Is that something you have even an interest in?
Okay. And what makes you think that I am very intuitive?
I've seen you, and you know that, because when I had my show at our old station that shall not be mentioned, I had you on there quite a few times, and there's just a little bit of input that you would put in there every now and then if I was doing a reading, say for one of our mutual friends or something. And it wasn't just because you knew this person mutually. There were things that came to you, and you mentioned it, and it happened to really play a part within the reading that I was giving. Even talking to you as a friend, you're very level-headed. You're also, I think you've got really great insight. I think you've got a really great gut instinct, even when you've explained to me, say with your paranormal investigations, or how you deal with things, or what you know when you've met people. And like I said, there's so many different, we could do, I know we don't have 3 hours, we can do a 3-hour show just on the gifts that people have. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Everybody is so unique. Everybody brings their own special piece to the puzzle. And I just said this in one of the groups that I run on Facebook, that, for example, we could take 10 people in a room, regardless of whether you consider yourself psychic or not. But say you know about the third eye. You could write an article about the third eye, and I could write an article, and the other 8 people in the room could write an article, and we will each have our own particular unique, beautiful spin that when you bring it all together with a cohesive but much more broader description for people to be able to understand what that is. So like I said, everybody has their own unique gifts, their own way they perceive energy, perceive spirit. It's all a matter about being open to it, I think, is the first thing.
Very cool. And, I personally, I disagree with, with the assessment that I have abilities.
We've had this conversation. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. We've had this conversation. Yeah, but that's part of the problem, right? and I don't mean it with any judgment, but when we tell ourselves that we're not, right? Remember when I said what we believe we perceive. So in your mind, you're saying, no, I don't, or I disagree. And you're perfectly within your right. You know yourself best. But I'm also an objective observer. And I'm sure if there were other spiritual teachers or mentors, in the room, or anybody else that was teaching these type of gifts or helping people to realize their gifts, they would be able to point that out to you as well. I don't want to get really personal with you here, hon. But there's many things I've seen with you. And without going in too far depth, you and I have had quite the conversations. We've done an angel board reading together, for example.
Right, and I was just going to bring that up because we've only got about 2.5 minutes until our break. But you knew about Joe and I before Joe and I knew about Joe and I.
Yes, but what I'm going to add to that is, and the conversation that we had, you had a question. I knew the answer, but I wasn't going to tell you that because I knew Spirit told you that you needed to figure it out, and you did.
Right,
so
because
if you
I
weren't
had a
intuitive and be able, well, that's where information can come from.
Yeah, I had that dream and about Joe, and I had never dreamed about Joe before, but I had that dream about Joe, and
Surprise.
as soon as I woke up, I messaged you. I'm like, we need to talk, because it was one of those dreams that was just so real.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, but that can be a real impetus. That's the easiest way for Spirit, our guides. Heck, I even told you this, that you and Joe could literally have met up energetically in that dream. That can happen. Our higher selves can do that.
I don't know, Joe, do you recall having a dream about me during that time period before we got together?
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to have to ask you about that dream and see if my dream and your dream match.
Oh, I already told you my dream.
It was not the same dream.
Yeah, but before we go to break, I was just going to say, you may not have the dream on the same night, or one of you may not remember the dream, or both of you may not remember the dream. But your higher selves know best. I believe our higher selves, or subconscious, whatever you want to call it, is always connected to source energy, or whatever your belief is for a higher power. Even some people don't believe in a higher power, and I'm not here to judge. That's not my job. But that part of each of us knows better. So even if you guys hadn't recalled this dream, there was no way you couldn't not have recalled this dream. But with it being so real, he could have very well have been there with his higher self with you.
That is very possible.
And it's time for our top of the hour break, but when we come back, we will have more with Lorilei, so stay tuned. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on the WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we'll be right back after this message from NPR.
Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening is the cream in my Oreo cookie, Mr. Joe White.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
Lorilei is laughing at us.
I forgot to mention I'm very visual. Sorry. Gotta have a good sense of humor, too.
So, a few months ago, you gave a reading to me. And if you don't mind, I would like for you to give Joe a reading.
All right, but what kind? Well, we don't have time for the angel board, but I will mention, if people are wondering about an angel board, because a lot of people haven't seen it, I'll make sure to get either, mention my YouTube channel. It's Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, because I do show how it works, because it's quite unique, isn't it, Clarissa?
Yes, it's intense.
And it's not like a tarot board or anything like that. It's gives you some pretty in-depth answers. So, Joe, are you open to having a reading? Even though Clarissa thinks I should give you one, that's the first thing. Are you open to having one?
Sure, you go right ahead.
Do you have any burning questions that you're wondering about, or is there anything specific that you're wondering, or? Well, while we were on break, while you're thinking, I actually was describing Joe, which I picked up about him the very first time. And actually, I'm going to share it, Joe. You actually said I hit the nail on the head, right?
Yes.
But I could pick it up about who you are. Very deep man that just sits back and takes it all in right at the perfect moment, just gives you the perfect response or one line or whatever it may be.
Right. Well, one major question is finances.
Ah, okay.
Want to know if
Finances.
I'm going to be like, struggling the rest of my life.
I didn't bring, that's one deck I didn't bring down, but that's okay because I'll listen to Spirit. And I don't usually use this deck. I'm going to use, and I don't need a deck to do readings. I was explaining, well, Clarissa knows that as well. Just when we're on the radio to cut back on time, it's a little bit easier. But while I'm grabbing the deck, it's actually called the Archangel Oracle deck. They're not all angel decks I have, but Joe, the one thing that I heard from Spirit for you is that there's some opportunities that are available to you that you've kind of swept to the backside, that's not feasible. That's something I might get back to later. I don't know if it has something to do with some really creative endeavor. And that's what I'm hearing from Spirit, that's kind of the answer for you, to think outside the box. Well, first of all, I'm going to just add this part personally, that again, when I was talking earlier about our words and what we put out, everything that we say and think, emotions, it's all energy. And there are universal laws of this planet that we live on. And one of them is, even it's called affirmations. I touched on that briefly. And even though we don't believe it, we may feel stupid seeing it, is putting up, even whether it's on your phone screen or wherever, you can say, I attract money like a magnet. Money flows to me like a river. The other thing that's so important, and the second piece a lot of people forget, is showing, whether you want to think of it as the universe or what it is, that I'm open to receiving. So what that means, Joe, if somebody, say, wants to buy you a cup of coffee, because you're the type that's very nurturing, especially for somebody that you love, I'm hearing, but also being very open to receiving. So say somebody, again, like wants to buy you lunch or buy you a coffee or hold a door, whatever it may be, to be very open to also receiving, because there's always give and take. We live in a world of duality here. We've got cold, we've got hot, we've got night, we've got dark. So not only for the money to flow to you, but also that you're open to receiving it. I am going to pull a card for you, and Spirit won't let me forget. I don't know what this is about creativity. Something, I keep hearing book. I don't know if you're thinking about writing a book, or if you've even considered it, or it might have occurred to you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a book. It has something to do with the creative process. That being,
Holy crap.
what?
Just last night, I was telling Clarissa that I was thinking of actually writing a book.
Are you serious? Like,
Yes.
I did not know this, because I haven't talked to these guys in a week and a half at least. Are you serious? Because that's exact Spirit. I just said Spirit would not let this go about the creativity as I was reading for the deck. So thinking outside the box. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. And Clarissa knows that's my sign for truth always.
Yep.
Yeah. Think outside the box. Go for it, Joe, because that's going to be your answer. Like, I wish we were on camera. I would show you. I have so many goosebumps right now. I'm going to pull a card.
If we were on camera, you would have seen both of our jaws hit the floor.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Aww. Well, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm taking an Akashic Record certification course, and I am telling you, if I thought I was psychic before, holy crap, this stuff I'm getting right now, and it's so cool. So that's another whole topic, the Akashic Records, but such a cool way to go. It's basically the Hall of Records for every soul of everything since a soul has been incarnated, from the past to now to the beginning, which will ever be. And the information is all recorded there.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning so many cool things. I'm loving it. Okay, let me pull a card for you, Joe. Let's see what this has to say. And of course, I remembered I have to have clean glasses. Interesting. I've already just seen this, and I think this has to do about when it might be fertile or fruitful for you to do this. What it's got this beautiful female angel, blonde hair. Looks like she's actually got irises in her hair, but she's got a lot of doves around her. So I'm thinking this may be when it's most peaceful, I just heard the words fertile and fruitful, like I said at the beginning, for you to start thinking about really getting into the work of this book. And it's called Moon Cycles. This is Archangel Haniel. Notice how the moon affects your energy and manifestations. You were asking about money, manifesting money, and capitalize upon these cycles. I will check the book. Like I said, I don't need these cards. It just makes readings a little bit easier when we're doing it on a show here. So I'll give you a little bit more here, Joe. Okay. There's an additional message. It says the full moon is a perfect time to release anything you're done with. And I'm also hearing that no longer serves you. Release that. And it says the moon is the time to focus on manifesting desires and intentions. And the evening before the full moon is an optimal time for healing and for recharging healing instruments such as crystals and oils. Well, you guys know that already. Right. Spend time looking at the moon and notice how you feel in relationship to its cycles. As you discover the moon's connection with your vitality and moods, you'll be more in touch with its divine magic. Because I keep hearing that that'll have a real, if you're able to pay attention to how you feel with it, Joe, you'll know when the right time is to start that book. It says, working with Archangel Haniel. Archangel Haniel's aura is a bluish white, like the full moon's glow. The crystal associated with Haniel is the moonstone, which has magical, nurturing energy associated with it. Wear or hold a moonstone whenever you wish to feel close to him or her, or Haniel. This is, she will care for you with her nurturing mother energy and effect miracles with her love for you. So the last part I'm hearing, Joe, obviously she wants to work with you. We all have angels. Don't have to remember her name if it's, because it's kind of a different name, but all we have to do, because we have the gift of free will, we don't even have to say it out loud, is just think it, that I give my permission for you to work with me. Ask her to leave you some signs. You can even dictate what those signs need to be, and you will be utterly amazed with the way that they will come up with these signs. It could be a song on the radio. It could be somebody typing an email to you that would never say the word or whatever you're asking for. But ask her for some guidance with this, because it sounds like she's the one that came up that wants to work with you on this. So I hope that helps you.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I did not know you were going to write a book. I'm still shocked too. Or that you had talked about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, we know the Angel Board gave us the original date you guys were talking about getting married, but then you moved it up to the next couple. Yeah, that's what I thought. But originally the date it had come up. It had said, I think it was it September or something?
No, we've got we've got a couple of friends that are getting married in September.
Mm-hmm.
But our original date was the 29th of next month.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, but that book that was really cool how accurate it actually was. And I don't usually give futuristic type readings, or if I do, if something comes through for the future, I always tell somebody as it is right now, because of free will, right? The way we're seeing it, tomorrow you may be going door, turning right and catching the bus, but maybe you woke up late tomorrow and decide to turn left and get a cab instead. So you see what I mean? So I don't usually give a lot of futuristic type readings, or I'll usually give as it is at this moment, because anything can change. Future's not written.
That is so cool. And I know our producer, Kat, wants a reading as well. We've got about 5 minutes before break. So, I don't know, maybe you can start the reading before we go to break?
Mm-hmm.
So, Kat, if you want to pop on for a minute?
Well,
I'm happy to do it.
I'm actually here.
Yay!
So, I have just not had my mic open or anything, so here I am.
Okay, so did you have a question that you had in mind, or it's up to you?
Well, I think that mainly it is just focus and busyness. I would like to know how things are going to pan out as far as organization type things coming together. And am I doing what I should be doing?
That's an interesting set of questions. The first thing I heard when you were talking about organization, I think it goes back to that process of taking time for yourself and also having a real heart-to-heart. This is going to sound crazy, but having a real heart-to-heart with yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, what do you enjoy doing? What do you maybe not enjoy doing so much? And maybe what can be prioritized? Because when we put things in play that we really enjoy, sometimes we can't avoid. There's things that we have to do that we don't enjoy. But that may help a little bit with the organizational process about cutting away. Spirit's literally showing me, I'm hearing the word and I never say this, cutting away the extraneous fluff. So the stuff that maybe doesn't really serve your purpose at the moment, to kind of put that on the back burner, but really bring forward again the things that give you joy. The other thing, and I don't always bring forward archangels in a reading, but tonight, Archangel Raziel would love to work with you about organization. So all you have to do again is say, listen, I need some help. You need your help with some organization. How better can I make better use of my time organizing? And I am going to get back to that to give me a little bit more, but you had asked me, am I doing what I'm meant to be doing? And as you were saying this, Kat, I'm really hearing that your heart's really pulling you towards getting back into paranormal investigating. I know you've been doing a little bit more. I guess it's a matter of, again, I'm going to keep focusing on what brings you joy. I'm literally hearing, and I've even said this to my own children, I mean, it's a cliche almost for most people, but when we do what brings us joy, then we never feel like it's work, right? We're motivated. We want to do it. For you, I'm getting that, giving me a little bit of a vision. I know that you do some traveling, but really following your heart, like, is there some places that you've really wanted to visit? Maybe not even within the United States or North America, but over in other parts of the world. Really following your heart, really going with that gut feeling about, like, is there somewhere you've always wanted to visit? Because I never tell people, are you doing the right thing or are you not doing the right thing? But again, when we follow what we love to do, that's what brings us the joy. That's what brings us more opportunities. I mean, the sky's the limit, I'm hearing for you. It's all a matter of what you really want. And if we're not really sure what you really want, the easiest way, I'm hearing again from Spirit, is to make a list of what you don't want. What do I not want?
I never make a list of what I don't want. I'm always listing steps to achieve what I think is
exactly
where to go.
And when I first heard this too, I thought, well, that's focusing on the negative. But we're not focusing on the negative, because if we really know what we don't want, that really helps us have laser pointer, vision to be able to figure out what we do want, right? If we don't want that, turn it into a positive. Well, then what do I want? And then start prioritizing what you want. And again, Spirit's nagging at me nonstop. Really focus, Kat, what brings you joy. Really brings you joy. Again, I don't know if you got some TV appearances coming up or something like that. But I don't know if it has to do with investigating or the line of work that you're doing. And if not, that certainly could be an opportunity for you if that's something you so desire to bring you in a different direction. Let me pull a card for you as well. Okay. I don't know if this is helping you or not. This is kind of a longer reading I would get into with you, Kat, if we were doing it privately, because there was quite a few questions here, and they were big questions.
Well, I didn't really need to go there. So
yeah. While you're doing that, we need to take our next break of the evening. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening is the man who makes Betty White wish she was a ghost just so he would investigate her, Mr. Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
No relation between Betty White and Joe White.
No, none. I wish, though.
And Lorilei, before we went to the break, you were going to pull a card for Kat, and then as soon as you're done with Kat, Mikey wants a reading. So,
Sure. I started still going on with a reading on our break, and I realized I got to save it till we're back on the air. So, Kat, what I was going to say, and I'm going to remember this, is I was talking about looking in the mirror, and what Spirit's showing me, and a lot of us don't do this, and I've tried, and sometimes it's a little difficult, but it's a good thing, because what I'm talking about, what Spirit's showing me, is standing in front of the mirror and saying, who am I? Really, really looking into your eyes, asking those questions. What do I really want? Who am I? What are my dreams? Is there anything maybe that you've put on hold, for whatever reason, kind of on the back burner, forgot about it? And this kind of goes back to the beginning of the show, Clarissa, when we were talking about raising our vibration. Because again, when we do things, and I can't state this enough, when we focus on the things that bring us joy, it doesn't feel like work. It's like things magically kind of fall into place. And again, I always say this, we all have guides, angels, we have guides, we have past family members, we've got ascended masters. Some of us even have elementals, aliens. We can have all kinds of different guides that are with us. And I always say, whether we believe in them or not, they believe in us and they're there. All we have to do is ask for their help. Ask if you want something, even if it seems a little impossible, ask them to help make it happen. And one thing Spirit's always shown me, anytime I've ever tried to figure it out how they may make it happen, I couldn't have imagined in a million years in my wildest dreams how it ends up coming out all to play. So that's part of it. When you had asked, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? The other thing Spirit wants me to tell you is we are always where we are meant to be right in this moment. So for whatever reason that may be, whether we may be happy, we may be sad, maybe we're not feeling fulfilled, there's always a reason for that. There's always a lesson to take from that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, whether it may be, say, some healing time or some time away from it, to look back and see where the pieces all fall into play. Because there's always a lesson in what we do, who we connect with, what we're doing in that moment. The other thing, and this is literally, I'm channeling this from Spirit, use your emotions as your compass. So if it makes you feel good, or they're even showing me a canoe, if it's easy and you're able to almost feel like you're paddling. Pardon?
Or a kayak.
Okay, kayak, there you go. So when you're in the kayak and you're going downstream, it's easy, right? It's not a lot of work. But if we're trying to paddle upstream and there's a current, it just is so difficult, right? That's kind of how they're showing me with life. And this actually is kind of for everybody out there, that we can almost look at like we're in that kayak and the way we steer that kayak. And even if we just stop and breathe and we're in that current with the kayak, eventually the movement of the water will turn that kayak around so that we'll start to go downstream. So Spirit has shown me, and we have the right to not fulfill whatever we've set out to do. We're not here by accident. Every one of us is here for a reason. But whenever we kind of steer upstream, life becomes more difficult. So by focusing on what brings you joy, brings you happiness, things that you've thought of, could be creative endeavors, could be dreams that you put on hold, really look at and use your body as that compass, how it makes you feel. Because that's when pieces will start to fall into place. The organization won't become maybe quite as difficult. Maybe delegating, asking for help when you need it. Like I said, I was telling Kat on the break, this is a really interesting, amazing reading. I said, this is something I would love to spend a lot of time on because you've asked some beautiful, interesting questions. But I said I would pull a card for you, so hang on. Does that help you? Does that resonate with you, Kat, at all?
It does resonate with me, and it is pretty much where I am right now, trying to because I'm 57.
Mhm.
And not very many people know that I've lost most of this year due to an injury, which is funny because I told everybody I was 57 last year and I laughed about getting a do-over. Yeah, because I'd already told everybody I'd lived through 57, right? So,
Yes.
and I'm not able to do all of the things I want because of my mobility issues still, and I thought I was past that. But I've had a lot of contemplative time frame, when I haven't been easy. Things have not been, I couldn't move around a lot or whatever. So I've had a lot of contemplative time. And I feel like I'm doing a lot of things that I want to be doing, but sometimes it feels like I'm fighting a current as opposed to flowing with the current.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, Kat, I didn't know how much you had revealed about you having the health issues, because I thought that was the first thing that came up.
Right.
And I didn't want to say anything because I've told you, and anybody that knows me, that I do readings, that confidentiality is super important to me. So I will never reveal something about somebody. I won't even say their name without asking permission first. But this has to do with the healing process I think this goes back to and I'm just putting the pieces together now myself, and I had said that it kind of gives you the time where you are. We're always in the right space where we're supposed to be at that moment. But as time goes on and you start to heal, you'll be able to look back about what's come out of that time, that recuperative time when you were there, like he said, spending a lot of contemplative time, that wasn't time wasted, Spirit's saying.
It wasn't.
It wasn't time wasted. No, not at all. The other thing is that, and it's a hard thing, is the patience, giving your body the time to heal still. Even a lot of times, and we've talked about this as well, Kat, you and I, about energy healing and things like that. There's something else that may help. They're even suggesting, there's a lot of great resources on YouTube for the listeners out there. And some of the things you can even plug in overnight, like binaural beats, or there's iDoser. There's all kinds of great channels out there. You can even turn on really, really low, and that will help with a lot of the healing, even maybe a little bit of chakra balancing overnight, so that, say you don't have the time during the day, if you're able to plug that in really quietly, it doesn't even need to be barely loud at all. But your brain will pick that up, and that'll almost do a lot of healing for you while you're sleeping. Last thing Spirit is suggesting before you go to sleep at night, imagine yourself in a ball of light. Emerald green is super healing. So that sparkly, beautiful, healing emerald green all around your whole body, like it's a bubble. Before you fall asleep, setting the intention that you will be doing healing while you're sleeping, because we do heal while we sleep anyways. So that light with your guides as well. I did pull a card for you, hun. And this is from a deck called, Messages from Your Angels. So what I pulled was Crystal. And looks like she's actually contemplative, standing on a green hill with a field and a little bit of mountains behind her. Actually, her halo is even a little bit askew, but she's got her hands on her heart, like she's really, really deeply being contemplative. And what this card says is, have faith and hope, because there is something positive and new on the horizon that you can't see. And you heard me shuffling, so I did not pick that card. That I just shuffle until I hear stop and then cut the deck. I'm going to see what the rest of this says. Additional messages for Crystal. Excuse me. The seeds that you may have planted are beginning to sprout results. You may not even be aware of these results. However, since they are in their infancy, now it is more important than ever to stay positive and to hold a clear vision of your desire and intention. Now I know why Spirit kept saying, focus on what brings you joy. Avoid skeptics or those with negative mindsets. Daily action, even if it only consists of baby steps toward the fruition of your dream, is essential. A phone call, a letter, or reading relevant material will keep the energy of your manifestation at a high level. Every day, positively affirm that you have already achieved or exceeded your dream. And most important, Ask for angelic assistance every step of the way. So I hope that helps you, love.
That does help me, and that totally resonates. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, you asked such great questions. That would have been one I would have been on if I had been able to. Boy, we probably would have been pulling out that angel board, I think, getting really in depth.
Well, we've got about 9 minutes before our next break. Do we want to get on with Mikey's reading?
Yes, and I was actually putting that to you, and there's the first part.
Oh, now I know I pulled the deck. I did. I didn't think I was going to need it, and I heard Spirit say pull it.
Yes.
So, Mikey wants to know about true love.
Aha. And Mikey, when I was upstairs, I was listening to Clarissa and Joe, and I messaged Clarissa quickly, and I didn't know we were going to be doing readings. And then I heard her say, maybe we'll get Laura to do a few readings. So I ran upstairs before she called me, and because that's where I have my decks. And I said, Spirit, what decks? I just grabbed it. One of them was the Romance Angels for you. So as I understand it, you're wondering about love and will you ever find it? Have I got that right, everybody? And where his life is going if there's time. Okay. So just give me a minute to tune into your energy, Mike. The first thing that's coming through for you is that I'm picking up a lot of heartbreak. A lot about you that you're a real giver, but you tend to put your own needs sort of on the back burner. I keep saying this word tonight. I don't usually use the word back burner, but not really attending to your own needs as well when you are in a relationship. Spirit wants me to tell you that the most important thing that this is for everybody out there, that we have to fill up our own cup first before we can give to others. So what that means is we need to nurture ourselves, love ourselves, be good to ourselves. And I always liken it to when you get on an airplane and the flight attendant says, if you're traveling with small children or those that are unable in the event that we need an oxygen mask to be able to put on their own mask, please always put your mask on first. And when I was younger, I used to think, well, why would we do that? Now I know why, because in order for us to be able to help the person beside us or anybody else that may need that help, we need to take care of ourselves first. So it's literally like likening filling up your own cup. The other part, and I get this advice or information quite a bit when it comes up with love questions, but this is what comes through from Spirit for me, for most people. A lot of us are going through this right now, trying to find that perfect person or that soulmate that we're looking for. And part of it is, Mike, is right now, while you're maybe haven't found that true love, is really working on yourself. And again, I'm a really high vibe, kind of focus on joy, light, and love. But what are the things that you love to do? What do you love to do that, like, focus on this time? Like, is there times, maybe somewhere you wanted to travel or, a hobby you wanted to take up? And even if there isn't, I always suggest this, that, you know what? I don't know if you enjoy cooking or, and that's just a suggestion. There could be anything. But looking at maybe an activity that you've always wanted to try, but either you weren't able to because maybe you were in a relationship or, you just maybe didn't have the courage to go forward with it. Because there's a good opportunity that you may meet somebody there that you never even thought that you ever would have met them. You're both trying something new. You're learning together. It's kind of a low stress opportunity to meet somebody versus, say, in a bar or online dating. Nothing wrong with that as well either. I literally heard Spirit say, cast the net as far as you feel comfortable with, trying to find somebody. But you also heard me talk a little bit about the universe tonight. And I know I've even given, when Clarissa and I did this love reading, I think it came up. But I do tell people this a lot. You have to know what you want. So what are you wanting in the perfect partner? So even if you have to make that list, write it down and be as specific as you want. Nobody has to see that except you. It's almost like going to that restaurant, and I've used this analogy before, that you go to a pasta restaurant that serves 150 different types of pasta, and you walk in and you say to the waiter, I'll have pasta. Well, what kind? Just bring me the pasta. So you kind of let that go with the waiter, your order, trusting that you're going to get pasta, but he keeps bringing you the wrong pasta because you haven't been specific with him. So the next time, finally, after the umpteenth time you've got the wrong pasta, you get really specific. I want bolognese meat sauce, and I want freshly shaved Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and I want pork meatballs, or whatever it is. You get really specific. We need to get really specific with the universe. And really be honest with yourself. Like, what are you looking for in that special partner? Because sometimes we never really ask ourselves that. We just meet somebody that we get kind of a spark with, and then we have the honeymoon period. And then it always ends up disappointing us because we don't meet that love of our life. So those are some of the things that Spirit has suggested. I don't want to run over. We still got a little bit of time, you guys, before the break?
We still have about 3 minutes.
But Mikey, Mike just said real quick that you're right on track with him, and that he loves cooking and he just wants to be loved back.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that, because that was my next, or you mentioned that, Joe, and Mike, because that was my next question, Mikey. This is a book I suggest to a lot of people too when they ask romance questions. There's a great book out there called The 5 Languages of Love. How do you like to show love, and how do you like to receive it? What do you need? Some people need their space. Some people show it by the way they do things for others, but they don't say it. Some people are gift buyers. So really be specific too when you're putting that order, quote unquote, out to the universe. What are you looking for? What do you need from that partner to show you how she loves it? She loves you. What do you need? And be really, really honest with yourself. What do you need to feel loved and appreciated? Put that all out there, because this is just for you. And then when we put that down on paper, you can do whatever you want. You can hang on to it. You can release it at the full moon. Some people do whatever you want. But by putting that energy out, by writing that physically down on the paper, because remember I mentioned earlier, everything is energy. It really makes it concrete out there. Plus, it almost helps affirm in your mind what you're looking for. Heck, you can put down what color hair, what height. Like I said, nobody has to see this but you. But by getting really, really specific, then you kind of know what you want. And believe it or not, the universe will have a better idea about what to bring you. And that's another thing, the law of attraction, but that's a whole other show. So I don't want to go over, Mike, but I'm going to answer the rest of your questions, if that's okay, after the break, and pull a card for you. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah, that's great. And we still have about 1 minute left before we go to break, but I'm sure Kat won't mind if we go a minute early. So we are going to go ahead and take our final break of the evening. But when we come back, we'll have more with Lorilei, and we'll wrap up Mikey's reading. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vazquez, and in the co-pilot seat this evening is the wind beneath my wings, Mr. Joe White.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
And we are having a great time with our guest tonight, Lorilei Potvin. She has been telling us some amazing stories, and she's been doing readings. And Lorilei, you were going to pull a card for one of our listeners, Mikey, right?
I was, but while we were on that break, Mikey, I had a little bit more information come through. And what Spirit wants me to share with you is, have you never not noticed that when you're in a relationship with somebody, that's when all these women start hitting on you, always. But when you're single, it seems like it's drier than the Sahara Desert. And part of that, Spirit showed me the analogy on the break, is that the reason why that happens is because there's no pressure when you meet that other person, right? You just get to see the amazing, wonderful person that's you. You don't really have an interest in them, so they're not feeling that interest, that pull towards them. You're just getting to see who you are. You don't have to put up any facade. You don't have to work at it, and that's what draws them in. Have you guys noticed this as well? Like, like Clarissa, Joe,
I
Kat?
have, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're in a relationship, that's when people start to hit on you and want to be with you. And it's because they get to see who you are. You don't have to pull out any moves or anything like it. So what Spirit's trying to say here is, Mike, when you, it's like, say you said you like cooking, you go to that cooking class and so you have a spark with someone, just be you. Just be exactly who you are, your wonderful, great self, and let that shine through, because then you know what? There's no pressure. There's nothing. You'd be amazed how that attraction grows. It would be almost like you were in a relationship. And speaking of previous relationships, I am going to pull the card for you. The beautiful thing about this, and it's with no judgment, is also taking a look at past relationships, taking ownership in, there's two people always in a relationship, looking at first why you fell in love. What was it that drew you to that person? But also looking at the whole relationship. What parts worked for you? What parts didn't? Again, with no judgment. But every relationship and interaction that we have, whether it's romantic, whether it's platonic, there's always a lesson to take from that moving forward. So looking at all those things as well, taking that all into the big picture, but taking the pressure off of yourself. And again, believe it or not, it's all about energy. And I'm also a nurse too, so I have a little bit of a scientific background, but it really is. Our words, our emotions, our thoughts, everything on this planet is energy. And sometimes people can pick that up, but they don't know what they're picking up about people. But that's why it's usually so easy when you're in a relationship, because there is no energy about I'm looking to meet somebody, I'm hoping to meet that perfect person. So just relax, be your wonderful, amazing self. If you love cooking, I don't know if it's Italian I keep seeing or something, I don't know, but that's where I'm seeing it. It's something to do with pasta. Maybe that's why I brought up the pasta analogy. But maybe check out something like that. I bet you're going to meet a really great woman, or could be wine tasting, could be anything like that, but something you've always wanted to try and learn how to do. Plus, you learn a new skill. It's also something you can bond over. I'm going to pull a card for you right now. I'm just shuffling. I don't know if you can hear me. Let's see. Interesting. Ooh, I like this card, Mike. So I don't know if you believe in past lives or not. I do, that's for sure. And I believe they really do happen. This says past life relationship. You have known each other before. So maybe this mystery person that you're going to meet for your next relationship is somebody you've met before in a past life, or you've known each other, so they'll seem very familiar when you do meet them. You'll just click. There'll be things you may know about each other that you don't know how you know about each other, or it'll just be like, I'm literally feeling, I keep getting this picture Spirit showing me, almost like a zipper. When you pull up the zipper, you just fit perfectly together. So again, not something to focus on, but that's what Spirit's saying the next relationship is. You may very well run into someone that's a past life relationship. Let me just find it in the book here. Hang on. And I know you asked about, are you on the right path too? Past life relationship. So it says you've known each other before. The romance angels have sent you this card to explain the relationship you're asking about. You may have some unfinished business in conjunction with a soulmate from a past lifetime. This may involve forgiving someone, a joint project, or learning personal lessons such as patience. I will be honest with you, when I saw past life relationship, Mike, that it's not necessarily something that needs to be resolved, but almost like a joint project that you guys weren't able to finish in that previous lifetime together, that you've contracted, believe it or not, to meet up in this lifetime and complete it. So it's a positive thing. It says soulmates recognize each other instantly, and this feeling is often registered as a sense of romantic or sexual chemistry. The magnetism that draws two people together can surpass logic, because the purpose of the relationship is healing and learning. Whether or not your soulmate becomes your life partner, you'll experience personal and spiritual lessons and growth as a result. It says past life regressions can also help you uncover the answers you seek. And if you're not sure about that, you may want to Google it, because it'll take a long time to explain. They're not difficult to do, just finding the right practitioner.
Lorilei?
Mm-hmm.
Mike wants to know if there's a name, if you picked up on a name.
I don't usually do names, but I keep hearing something to do like a Patricia or Ashley. I don't know why, if it's an Ashley Patricia or Patricia Ashley. Those are two names I'm hearing, and I don't know why. So, like I said, I don't usually give names. Usually when I get names, it's when I do a mediumship reading, usually, not in a relationship.
Okay.
So don't get, Mikey, my thing will be, don't get hung up on the name. Believe it or not, on the other side, they don't even use names. It's all about energy. So I don't know if you're attracted to blondes too, because I see some kind of blonde woman. I don't know why. And like I said, don't get hung up on the hair color. It could be hair dye. So, like I say, that's why I don't like to give people specifics, because when I do, it kind of shuts you off to other possibilities, right? If you think about it. So you say you've got somebody like me that's a psychic saying, well, you're going to meet somebody by the name of Ashley or Patricia, and they may have blonde hair. Well, then you're going to cut out the whole world of redheads, brunettes, any other color hair. So that's why I don't usually like to do that with people. Am I okay to touch on Mike's other question, you guys? He had asked about the crossroads that he's at.
Sure.
Okay. So Mike, the other part you had asked about sort of being at a crossroads, are you on the right path? It seems like, I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you're maybe in your 20s or 30s, or so this is always a big period of growth for people. This is almost when you have to make a lot of life decisions, and I'm literally hearing from Spirit that you do not have to make all these decisions at once. And again, it's going to sound like the same advice that kind of gave throughout this with Kat especially, but Spirit wants you to know how important it is to focus on what brings you happiness, what brings you joy. And they're literally showing me you trying on a bunch of different hats. So for me, they're not even showing me like a Y in the road, like a crossroads. It's almost like it's a multi-path road in front of you. So if you're not really sure what path to try on, and the beauty of it is, with not having a significant other in your life, it kind of gives you the flexibility to try on a few of these quote unquote hats, if you will. So if you've got the opportunities to try these on, try them on, Spirit saying, that way you will know what brings you, again, joy, where your passion really lays. Like you said, you like cooking. Being open to things that maybe were never open before. I don't know if you're a surfer or you've always wanted to go to the beach or water. I'm seeing something to do with water. You could travel. Maybe there's even a profession that you've wanted to always pursue, but for whatever reason you weren't able to. Maybe there's something you might be able to take as a night course or whatever it is. But that's what this is about. And I don't know why they brought this up. Something to do even with spirituality. Spirituality has nothing to do with religion. But if this is something that maybe has piqued your interest, or you've really been noticing a bit of your sixth sense, or so whatever that may be, something with paranormal investigation, could be whatever it may be, meditation. And if you're not sure about that, like I said, YouTube's a great resource to go to. Have a listen with that, check out a few guided meditations. If there's things you have questions about or you're not sure, there's even ones having to do with life path or what is my life purpose. But like I said, that's another question. I know Kat kind of asked me something similar, and I like to spend a lot more time with people usually on this, getting to know them a little bit better. And it's not because you're leading me with questions. It's usually just if I'm able to speak with you or, kind of get a better idea, I can sort of pick up on your energy a little bit better. So I hope that helps you. I know it's a little bit vague, but Spirit's literally saying this is the perfect time with no attachments or no strings attached to be able to do all the things that maybe you weren't able to do before. And who knows, you may end up meeting that soulmate that you've been looking for, even in pursuit of what brings you happiness and joy, when you're not sure if you're on the right path or not, they could all fall into place. So I hope that helps, Mike.
Yeah, by the way, he says that he loves water. He scuba dives.
Does he? Because yeah, you know what they kept showing me? They kept showing me waves, and like I could see like I could like almost smell the sea air, and like it looked like he was scuba diving or on some kind of like, you know when they're on those boards on your belly, like swimming out.
Yes.
So I don't know what that had. They didn't show me so much surfing, but it just looked like a surfboard. Well, that's interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
He said that there is an A name that Anita, I believe he said the name was, and she's blonde, but she died.
Oh, maybe she was coming through, Mike. Maybe that's why I remember I said to you, I usually only get names with mediumship. And I'm so sorry for your loss, but please know our loved ones never leave us. And though this reading isn't about me, I'm going to share something really personal with you, Mike. I had a boyfriend from the time I was 14, off and on. He was the guy that I went out finally with before I got married to my first husband. And unfortunately, we kind of lost touch. And he passed away about 6 years ago of cancer. Never got a chance to talk to him. I'd actually seen him from afar in the grocery store, meant to go talk to him, and I didn't. Well, when I was taking my mediumship course with my mentor, I can't tell you how many times he came through. Because what would happen was I would connect with a student on the other line. We never saw each other. We didn't know anything about each other except we heard each other's voices. And they actually kept thinking they were hearing his name. The first time they told me it, I actually burst into tears because I would never in a million years have expected him to show up. But that's the beauty of our loved ones and friends and family. They're always around us, always. They never, ever leave us.
Right.
So,
Because he says,
Well, Lorilei, we have reached the end of our show, but we want to thank you for being such a great guest. You've given a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom to a lot of people this evening, and we want to thank you for that. So real quick, do you want to tell people where they can find you and learn more about you?
yes, and thank you so much for having me tonight. I just love this. Thank you. You guys can find me on Facebook under the Angel Rock. That's my business page there. I have two groups on Facebook also called the Angel Rock Group and Paranormal University. I have a YouTube channel called The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, but even if you look up The Angel Rock, you'll find it. And yeah, that's where you'll be able to find me. And I'd love to work with you. So feel free to message me on my business page. And you guys, thank you so much for having me tonight. I love you both deeply. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Oh, it was our pleasure, Lorilei. And folks, be sure to stay tuned tomorrow night at gosh, I forgot what time. I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern. It might be 10 p.m. Eastern for Tripping the Void with Seraphine Hurley, as well as the other great programming here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Tune in next Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern for Periscope Uncensored. We're going to have, as a guest, we're going to have Rick McCallum from Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
Yay.
We are super excited to have him on the show. So be sure to tune into that next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. So for Joe, Kat, Lorilei, the WBHM family of hosts, and myself, have a great night, and may all your ghosts be friendly.
stay spooky, everybody.